Biden has to deliver, and he's got to go big. Otherwise, we're looking at 2024 Trump running again. We're looking at actual fascism. We're looking at, it's not head wound Hitler anymore. It's actual Hitler. And you have argued that debt abolition, specifically student debt abolition, could be that linchpin, could be a way that he could deliver immediately for the American people. Just describe for us, like, what would that actually do for people and for the economy?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking that question. I mean, here's the thing. Biden has to deliver, absolutely, but he won't do it unless he is forced to. We know that we did not elect a change agent. He's made it very clear that he wants, his own version of Make America Great Again, turn back the clock, to the Obama era. But absolutely, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of an economic crisis. I mean, you all have spent the last half an hour laying out the pain that people are experiencing. And so this administration has to make a real, immediate, material difference in people's lives. Yeah. And the chances are they're going to be facing an obstructionist Senate controlled by Mitch McConnell, right? I mean, Kamala would be the tie-breaking vote if good things happen in Georgia. So they need to be serious about executive authority. What power will the executive branch have? And so one thing that they can absolutely do, without a doubt, is abolish every penny of federal student debt. So this is a way to provide a massive economic stimulus to say to the American people, we're doing something. We're doing something that is big, is bold, and makes a big difference in your lives. 45 million people have student debt. Before the pandemic, over 1 million people defaulted on their loans every year. People struggle under the weight of their loans. And it's, disproportionately young people, but a lot of older people have student loans as well. Older people have their Social Security garnished because they're in default. This is something that is dragging down a generation. People, are living with their parents. This is all pre-pandemic stuff, right? Can't start families, can't get on with their lives. Debt is held disproportionately by people who are marginalized. Black women hold the most student debt. And it makes sense, right? Because Black students have less intergenerational wealth, and then they're facing, wage discrimination. So it's harder to pay it off. So what you see is that the gap among people who do graduate between Black students and white students is white students do slowly chip away at their student loans, but for Black graduates, they just balloon, right? The interest keeps compounding. 40% of people with student debt never even manage to get through college, right? They can't do it because, they're probably working 2 jobs. We know that a lot of students were housing insecure, food insecure before the pandemic. So, it's one of these things that with a signature, the Secretary of Education can just say, this was a policy mistake. We're in an emergency, and let's provide this huge economic stimulus. It would provide, erasing all student debt would provide, estimates say, about $108 billion of stimulus a year, create over 1 million jobs. And this is something that can happen because in the Higher Education Act of 1965, Congress already gave the Department of Education the ability to do what's called compromise and settlement, to compromise debts. The federal government's able to make debts, and with that power, it's implicit. They also have the power to not collect on them, to erase them, right? Yeah. And so this is an authority that actually, the person who used it most recently was Donald Trump, because he used compromise and settlement authority, his administration.
Wait, Donald Trump Jr. or Senior?
What?
Donald Trump Jr. or Senior?
Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump Jr. the president? Did I call him Jr.?
I can't remember.
Oh, anyway, Donald Trump's administration used compromise and settlement authority to erase some interest a few months ago. So this is something that has been road tested. And the question now is, is Biden going to do it, or is he going to pass on one of the biggest, boldest moves he can make to make a difference in people's lives, run away from a popular policy, right? Because it's popular even with people who don't have student debt. Yeah. And then, set his party up for a massive loss in 2022 and screw us all.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
So a lot of liberals love means testing. So
They
can
do.
you talk about why does a blanket debt relief policy, the right policy, why, when you talk about forgiving debt, do you mean including art history majors, everybody,
Especially art
Podcasters
history.
too.
podcasters?
Yeah.
Definitely podcasters.
So I always say you can't spell means tested without mean. And there's something, almost every means tested program, it creates unnecessary bureaucracy that stigmatizes people. And that actually typically is so hard to maneuver that people who technically are deserving, right, by whatever standards, don't get the relief or the benefits that they're entitled to because they can't figure out this. They can't figure out the bureaucracy. And I don't know, I'm sure some of your listeners, have tried or know people who are trying to get public service loan forgiveness, right? And I don't know if you know, but the statistics are that less than 2% of people who should have gotten this public service loan forgiveness, where they've worked at nonprofit jobs for X number of years, they've paid every payment on time. The federal government just said, oh, no, never mind. You've kept your end of the bargain. You've planned your whole life around this, but no. So bureaucracy is, in my opinion, typically broke on purpose. They don't want it to work. Just like when we saw the unemployment benefit sites crashing in Florida in the spring of 2020, right? In the spring of this year, it was revealed by government officials that they actually made the unemployment claims website so that it was not user-friendly to artificially suppress the numbers. So,
Sure.
I think there's a bureaucratic...
Yeah, that old Ticketmaster strategy, no more tickets sold out, yeah, right.
Yeah, only with this, it was like life and death. You can't get, you couldn't get your
Radiohead
unemployment. And so I think that's part of the problem with means testing is that we end up spending all this money on this administrative gobbledygook when we should be spending that money on people and what they need. The other thing is that student debt is already means tested. Billionaires and millionaires don't have student debt. It's already means tested. And so this is something where, people who have debt had to take out loans to go to school. And there's this social benefit. First, there's this social benefit that I just discussed, which is this economic boost, right? We would all be better off with this money circulating in the economy instead of being paid to our loan servicers. We all benefit from the jobs. We'd all benefit from not having people in our community default, because when you default on your student loans, there's all these consequences, right? Your credit score is screwed. It will impact whether you can get a job, impact whether you can rent a house. So we are not just isolated little atoms. We are affected by the bad things that happen to each other. So preventing people from having these disastrous consequences of default would be good for everybody. And then I think there's just the fact to me that education shouldn't be something we have to debt finance. So for me, that is the bigger philosophical picture, is student debt is a policy mistake. A generation ago, people didn't have to borrow so much to go to school. In fact, student debt was imposed as a punishment. Ronald Reagan, because y'all have been talking a lot about California, he was like, the state shouldn't subsidize curiosity. And that's a quote. Right? Tuition was imposed at the University of California system after protests in the free speech movement, after the Black Panther movement started emerging from community colleges, Merritt College, and other colleges where people were getting free education and feeling like entitled citizens. And then austerity, neoconservatism, attacked that and imposed tuition to control students, right? To make them less...
They're learning too much about democracy and, other countries in the world. Got to stop that. God, Ronald Reagan. I'm not that old, but he was awful. I do want to ask you.
He's a bad guy.
Bad guy. Debt relief it's becoming actually kind of popular. So 230 organizations, nonprofit organizations, including Greenpeace, the NAACP, signed this open letter to Kamala and Joe Biden. Why do I lead with Kamala? I'm like, let's go with the one we know is secure. With Joe Biden and to Joe Biden and Kamala saying you need to make good on this promise to relieve student debt. And the promise was only $10,000. The letter seemed to imply that they need to go a lot bigger. Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren have co-sponsored an open, I think it's just a call for $50,000 of student debt to be abolished. And I'm not sure if that's means tested or it's just anyone who has up to $50,000. What do you make of that push? And do you think, let's say 50,000 is enough? Why is Chuck Schumer doing this? Is he that afraid of being primaried by AOC?
Yeah. I mean, I'm for full cancellation. I think it all needs to go. That's the position of the debt collective. This is happening.
That's a cancel culture I can get behind.
That's cancel culture. Exactly. This is only happening. This is only on the table because of organizing. And organizing, I'm going to take full credit. The debt collective deserves major credit for. So the debt collective emerged out of Occupy Wall Street. There's the Occupy Student Debt Campaign. In 2012, we had a protest marking one T-Day, the day student debt passed $1 trillion. It's now at 1.7. If Biden doesn't act, we're going to be protesting 2 T-Day under his administration. And that's going to be, fucking devastating because it's going to be 14 a few presidencies later. We need to quit this. We need to cancel debt. And what we did was we launched a student debt strike in 2015 with students from a predatory for-profit college called Corinthian Colleges. And we were able, through this strike where people said, we're not paying, we shouldn't have to pay. We coupled this militant economic disobedience with creative legal strategies. And we found out that just like we discovered, our work is part of what uncovered compromise and settlement, this authority. We also discovered something called defense to repayment, where if a school lies to you or defrauds you, you have the right to have your debt canceled, which is fair. The government had never bothered to write the rules. So then we, with our roots in Occupy Wall Street, have to build this app so people can act on their rights. And the Department of Education then basically steals our website and puts it up really quickly, But we won $1 billion of debt cancellation.
Wow.
And what we showed, so Elizabeth Warren has said that that's actually where she realized mass debt cancellation is possible. And then we've been pushing compromise and settlement. We had a letter to Hillary Clinton, of course it was useless, where we were going to say Hillary Clinton cancel student debt with compromise and settlement authority. It's taken us the last few years as we've advanced the legal argument, right? We've advanced the legal argument to the point where now Warren and Schumer are publicly advocating for it and saying we want $50,000 via executive action using compromise and settlement authority. So there have been grassroots activists pushing this issue tirelessly, for now going on almost a decade, and trying to mainstream these ideas and essentially saying to the federal government and its representatives, we know the power you actually have. We've done our homework.
Yeah.
And we're going to do your legal research for you. And then we're also going to organize militant actions and strikes and public awareness campaigns to hold your feet to the fire. Right? Because we know it's not just about having good arguments. We have to literally tell them how to do it and where to sign. And then we have to build the public pressure so that they can't not use the power they possess. And our position is that not canceling student debt in 2021, given all the suffering that's happening, is an abuse of power. This is not asking Joe Biden to push the envelope. Really, it's not particularly brave.
It's not funding a new program either.
It's not. It's low-hanging fruit.
Kind of fictitious. It's debt. It's just, I am not up on what the downsides would be, but it's once again, it's how we're going to pay for it. Oh, just let it ride.
The downside,
it's okay.
The downside is that there's always the slippery slope argument, which is what's next? Cancel rent? And then we're yes. What's next? Cancel medical debt? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Hey, you made it to the end of the clip. That's probably because you like left politics and comedy. And me is gonna deliver. I am going to deliver more of that. So why don't you subscribe to this channel right now and you'll never miss another show again. Ever again.